Hey guys, welcome back to iCode. Today we are going to talk about HTTP status codes. More specifically, the ones that most of us are using incorrectly. Now, status codes are not just random numbers. They are part of the API contract. They carry some meaning. They tell the client that exactly what happened with the request. And if we misuse them, we create confusions and make the debugging harder. And not just the debugging, at times this can even break the SEO for the web applications. So in this video, we'll first see that why using the right codes is important. Then we'll look at all the 5 categories: 1xx informational, 2xx success, etc. And after that, we'll go through the most commonly misused ones. And finally, we'll see a short demo for understanding the use cases. And in the demo, we'll cover the 1xx, the informational ones as well. Since those codes are rarely seen in practice, please stay with me till the demo and see them in action. So when you return the right codes, you help the client to handle the things correctly. Imagine that you return 200 OK when a resource was not found. The client will think that it worked and might show an empty page to the user. Instead, if you return the failure code, the client will show a proper error message. Or let's say if your service is overloaded and you send back 500, the client just logs it as server error. But if you return 503 instead, which is used for service unavailable, the client knows that it can retry later. So when you use the right codes, client behaves correctly. And if someone new starts consuming your services, they can get started easily because standards are being followed. They won't have to learn about your own error code patterns. And in case of websites, the SEO will work fine, so it will be discoverable by search engines. Now let's quickly go through the categories of the status codes. Codes in the range of 1xx, they are informational. 2xx, they fall in the category of success. 300 ones, they are redirectional. And 4xx are for client-side errors versus 5xx, those are the server-side errors. Now let's look at a couple of them from each of these categories for a better understanding. So the first category, that's informational. In the range of 1xx, this is the least known family, and probably because these are not the final responses. They are more of a progress updates. For example, status code 100. This is used when clients want to check if the server is ready to handle a large payload of request or not. For example, you are uploading a large file and not sure that whether server is prepared for it or not. You do not want to waste the bandwidth if the server is about to reject it. So in these cases, client can just send a header saying expect 100 continue, and with that, server will get to know that client will be sending a large request body. If server responds with 100, it means that I am prepared, please continue. And then the client can continue sending the request. It's important to understand that this happens in the same request response cycle. It's not a new request. So that's the informational one. Let's look at one more example for better understanding. 103. That is used for early hints. Through this, server tells browser about the files which can be preloaded. So before returning the whole response, server can send some files as pre-response and client can preload them for optimizing the performance, the load time. This is done using the status code 103. So that was a lesser known category and we'll see this in the demo as well. Next, let's move to 2xx. We all know that it's for success response and its favorite range for all of us. So 200 for OK when the request worked. 201 when a resource gets created, 202 when the request gets queued for asynchronous processing, and 204 when there's nothing to be returned, but still it's a success. We'll talk about all of them, but right now I'm just giving you an overview. The next category, that is 3xx, that is for the redirection. So when a resource gets moved to some other place and server needs to inform client about redirection, this category is used. So 301 when resource is permanently moved, 302 for the temporary redirection. 307 and 308 are similar to 301 and 302, but they preserve the HTTP method. Then comes the next category, 4xx and 5xx for client-side and server-side errors. And there's a good range of codes in these categories, and they should be used in the right situations. The most common ones, 200 versus 201 versus 202. So please don't use 200 as success everywhere. If the request is for getting the user details, HTTP method is get route is something like /users and say path component gives you ID, say 1. Sure, return 200 with this, totally makes sense. But if a user is being created, it's a post request with which a new entity is being created in your database, it's a 201, not 200. Similarly, if it's an asynchronous processing, let's say the user has uploaded a video through your service and it is being encoded. So it should return 202 in this case, that the request has been accepted, but it's not 200. Let's talk about 204 as well. So when there's no content to return, for example, it was a delete request, you deleted the requested entity, and now there's nothing to be returned in the body, the status code should be 204, that there's no content, but the request was still successful. So don't send 200 with an empty body for delete. Next, 301 versus 302, 307 versus 308. This is another family where we often go wrong. So let's say if a blog has been permanently moved to a new URL, that's a 301 redirection. And if you return 301, browsers will cache it. This is great for SEO when a page has a permanent new URL. 302, which is a temporary redirection. So the server says that the requested resource has temporarily moved to this location, fetch it from here. But here's a problem. 302 did not specify clearly that whether the HTTP method should remain same or should it change. And because of this, some browsers change post to get when they receive a 302. And as a solution to this, there's 307 and 308. So 307 is a temporary redirect, but it's a clearer version of 302. It guarantees that the method, be it post, be it put, they will not change. And 308, which is a permanent redirect, it's like 301, but similar to 307, that it preserves the method. So the common mistake here that most developers do is just throw 302 blindly. But if you are redirecting a post form to another endpoint, 302 might downgrade it to a get in some clients. So in such cases, 307 should be used. Now comes 4xx series, a pain point for the front-end developers. The first one in the series is 400 versus 422. Understand the difference here. 400 is bad request, which means that server cannot understand the request, versus 422, which means unprocessable entity. This means the server can of course read it, but it cannot process it. Look at these examples. In the first one, it is an invalid JSON. The server literally cannot understand it. So it totally makes sense to send 400 in this case. It's a bad request. Now look at the second JSON. Here, the request format is valid, but the data inside it doesn't make sense because the age cannot be negative. So here you should return 422. With this, the client will get a better understanding of what's wrong, whether it is a syntax issue or a semantic issue. Next in this series, it's 401 unauthorized versus 403 forbidden. This is even more confusing. So 401 simply means that you are not authenticated. Basically, the server says that I don't know who you are. This can happen when you try to access, let's say, profile API without passing the access token. That's the perfect case for 401. Server tells you that you give me the valid credentials first. Now 403 is forbidden. It means that server knows you, but you don't have the permission to perform that action. For example, you log in as a normal user, but try to call an admin-only API. In this case, you have a valid token, but your role does not allow the admin operations. Most of the developers return 401 for any kind of access issues. This way, the front-end developers often get confused that I'm passing the right credentials. Why is server giving me 401? Because it should have returned 403 in this case, and that's the difference. Last, a very important one, 5xx series. This is where developers throw 500 internal server error for almost everything. Let's look at it. So 500 internal server error means something went wrong on the server itself. It is a generic catch when the server encounters some unexpected conditions which are not handled. So let's say your database crashes while processing a query, or your code throws a null pointer exception which is not handled. In these cases, maybe 500 is correct. But developers misuse this code even when the problem is clearly external. For example, let's say a downstream service is failing. That's where other codes come in. Next, the 502 bad gateway. So 502 means that the server was acting as a gateway or as a proxy, and it got an invalid response from the upstream servers. Let's understand by an example. So your API gateway, it forwards the request to a microservice. The microservice crashes and returns, say, garbage or malformed response. The gateway then returns a 502 bad gateway to the client. So it clearly says that the problem was with the upstream service, not me. It is usually sent by API gateways, load balancers, reverse proxies, not directly by your app. Now comes 503. That's a good one. So 503 says that the service is not available, and this usually happens due to overload or maintenance. For example, you deliberately take your service down for the maintenance purposes. Or let's say in case of high traffic, you hit the server's capacity and it can't serve any more requests. This is where your pod needs to scale. Now in this case, returning 503 tells the client that the problem is temporary and it can retry. As a good practice, the APIs should include a retry after header, so the clients get to know about the retry duration. Again, if we send the generic 500 error here, client may not retry ever again, even when your pods have scaled up and the service is now available. So you are losing your customers here. Can you imagine that just with a wrong status code, you have actually started losing the business? So it's not trivial, it's super important. Let's look one last before we move to the demo. So that's 504 gateway timeout. This should again be from the gateway and not your app. If your app hangs and it timeouts, the gateway will return 504. But if your app calls a downstream service and that doesn't respond in the set threshold time, that's not the case for the gateway timeout. In that case, you would send some other error code depending on how do you want to communicate this to the client. But 504, it means gateway did not receive the response from the service. So I hope that you got the differences and how these codes are being misused. Now let's look at a few of them in the demo. So I have this demo app ready for showing some of the status codes and how the things work internally. So the first one, this will be a straightforward API call and we are expecting a 200 status code over here. So let me just hit, okay, let me open the network tab as well so we can look at the request response as well. So I hit this API call and it says that message API is working fine. If we see here, the status code is 200 because we asked for something. Let's say it was a health check API, or as we discussed in the example, it was for getting some details. We got that and 200 makes sense here. Now let's try a file upload to see the 201 because the resource is being created, what we discussed. So let me try uploading a file. And we see the message that file has been uploaded, but let's look at the status code what we got. Now this is a 201 created. Because the new resource has been created at the server, it returned 201. But we also discussed that in the 1xx category informational one, there's a status code 100 and that can tell the server to expect a large payload and then server will return 100 in response. So let's look at that as well. Now in this case, the browsers hide the informational status codes. But if we try the curl for the same thing on the terminal, maybe we can see it. So let's try that. I'll try uploading the same file. I'll make the same API call from the terminal and we'll look at the 100 status code. Okay, so this is the curl call where I'm saying that, look at this header, expect 100 continue. So I am telling the server that expect a big chunk of file which will be uploaded, and if the server will be ready, it should respond with the 100 status code. So when I hit this, we see here, look at this. So we did mention that expect 100 continue, and then the server responded with the 100 continue status code, but this was not the final one. Then we got the 201 created. So this was the final status code when the request was completed. So as we discussed that the informational status codes are more of a progress updates or they are the intermediary ones. So that is where we got the 100 continue status code from the server. But again, as I mentioned, browser hides these code and that's the reason we didn't see it in the network tab of the browser. Let's move back to our demo and let's try the 5xx category. Okay, so I'll hit this slow API. Now I have configured it in a way that it will cross the timeout which has been set by my gateway. That's the Nginx. Okay, so I hit this slow API over here and you see that we are still waiting for the response and it says that it's a 504 gateway timeout. And this is because the gateway expected the response sooner than it got. In the response, if we see, okay, in the preview, let's say if we see, this is the page which we will get if we'll hit this URL directly in the browser, and it says that Nginx timed out, 8 seconds was exceeded. So this is because I configured it in this way for the demo purposes. Okay, now let's try the 503 overloaded ones. So in this one, we'll try to exhaust the server. We'll try to simulate the condition where the pods are not scaling and the server has reached to its limit that it cannot serve to the more requests. So we'll look at this queued section over here, which will tell us that these many requests are in queue. These many have been rejected because the queue was full, and then whatever has been ongoing or the success requests. So let me try hitting this continuously and we'll see that what happens. You see that we got a rejected count here. Now if we look at this, that's the overloaded one which got rejected, and the response says that it was rejected, the service was overloaded, the request queue was full, while some of them were served and some of them were in the queue. So this tells the client that maybe you can retry after some time, maybe by that time the queue will get empty. Now let's try a last one for the 502 bed gateway. So this API is giving us success over here. In the network tab, we can look at it that we are getting the success for this API. Now let me stop the backend service and let's see that what happens. Okay, so now that the backend service is stopped, let's try hitting this API again. And we see that instead of giving the response immediately, it is showing us a loader. And this was expected. The status is 502, and this is because the gateway didn't receive the response from the backend service. So that was about the demo. We saw that where should we use 502, 503, 504. Also how informational status code, the 1xx range can be used. We also saw that when the resource gets created, it should return a 201 instead of 200. So if you liked the explanation and the demo, please give a thumbs up and share with your friends. You can also consider subscribing for more such videos. And if you want me to cover something, please mention it in the comments and I'll try to pick it as soon as possible. See you in the next video. Till then, keep learning, keep building.